It's 5:30. I'll call the meeting to order. Could we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Welcome to the audio conferencing center. Please
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please wait for the leader to admit you to the meeting. Thank you for your patience.
I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's meeting. So the first order of business is the adoption of the agenda. Commissioners, have you had a chance to review the agenda?
I have.
And are there any additions or deletions from the agenda?
I have none.
I have none, Mayor.
If that's the case, then I will call for a motion.
I make a motion that we adopt the agenda.
Second it.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Appointments. The Park Board, there are 3 terms expiring July 1st, 2020. All are eligible for reappointment. Board of Examiners of Plumbers, 1 term expiring August 15th, 2020. The position is eligible for reappointment, and we have the Historic Preservation and Resource Commission, 2 terms expired January 1 of 2020, and all are eligible for reappointment. The Tree Board, 1 term expired June 1st, 2020. Applications are due by August 7th of 2020. So at this time, we have a presentation. Could the commissioners and Kelly join me at the podium? Today we're honoring a longtime employee, 41 years. Bill Kelly has served as city attorney, and it's in appreciation of your vision, your commitment, your dedication, many years of service to the Independence Municipal Court. We'd like to present you with this plaque, and also thank you for your diligence and your service to the community. We really appreciate all the years and your dedication.
Yes.
Kelly, would you?
If I could have Jocelyn Kuziak come up, please. If you want to come and kind of turn this way, we can get.
There you go, Jocelyn.
He is passing the gavel.
Cool.
And then if we could get a group picture of. Congratulations. Thank you.
Congratulations to you. Please stand up. Yeah, right here.
Yeah.
Right here. Yeah, right here. Yeah,
You in front.
yeah, your man. There you go.
I know.
Oh, you're good. You're good. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Pass me the gavel.
Oops, sorry.
Next item on the agenda are public hearings. So for our format for the public hearing, we'll open the hearing and then have presentation from the city. The property owner will be allowed to address then public interest. Then we'll close the public hearing and open it for discussion from the commissioners. So I'll open the public hearing on 801 East Birch. David?
Commissioner and Mayor, this house was involved in a structure fire several months ago, and initially the owner informed us that they were going to start work, and they did do some work, and then the work stopped. It is my understanding that they have relocated to Claremore, Oklahoma. We did send them a letter. I do not know if anybody is in attendance, but we have received no further communication or timelines. At this point, the last I was aware, they have abandoned the house and have no plans to continue work on it. Unless somebody's here, I have received no notification back from the letter that I sent.
Okay. Is there a representative of the owner present tonight? Yes, would you come address the commission, please? Identify yourself and your address.
I'm Jennifer Holscher, property owner of structure 801 East Birch. My son was actually the one getting the work started on it. There was something that happened here in Independence, I don't know, so I had gotten the letter for the property. I had now got a hold of a contractor for the structure on the home, so they are able to start in about 1 to 2 weeks on the structure. And in completion of the house, it'll be done in about 3 to 4 months.
Perfect.
Did you need that?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I'll give you mine so that you can
That'd be great.
contact me.
Okay. And that's all I
Could-
need here.
Is there anyone in the public that would like to address the commission concerning this property? If not, then I'll close the public hearing and open it for commissioner discussion. Commissioners?
David, is this new information that has been brought to you this evening?
Yes, and Commissioner and Mayor, she did present me a timeline, so I now have a timeline, and I've exchanged my contact information with her so that we can stay in contact. So I am fine with, if you guys would like to continue this for a couple months, and we'll see, let the work, because they did start work. As she said, an incident happened where her son was no longer here to continue the work, and she's now having to take it over. So I appreciate her coming here, I believe from Claremore, to be here tonight and provide us a timeline. So it is a salvageable house.
Okay. Commissioner Yususi, questions?
I've been by the house, and I know her son had done numerous cleanup around the yard because it had been an eyesore for quite a while. And I think there's still maybe a little bit of debris that we need to pick up. But other than that, it's a big improvement just cleaning up that corner. So, yeah, I'm good to hear that you're going to be able to rehab the house and have it rented out or someone, whatever. That's what my intentions are. Okay, good. Good news.
So, David, do I understand, or we as a commission understand that your recommendation is that we
Adjourn for
postpone
60 days.
for 60 days?
Yeah. Would August be okay to check back? Yes.
Commissioners, are you in agreement?
I would make that motion.
Okay, I have a motion.
It's the fourth Thursday at 5:30. We just might, because you're supposed to, you're supposed to adjourn to a date and time specific.
Yes.
Very good. What would the date and time be?
August 27th,
August?
27th.
So then the motion would read, David, would you read us the motion as you've got it recorded?
The motion would be to continue, or was it continue or adjourn the public hearing for 60 days to August 27th at 5:30 PM.
Okay,
I so move.
do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Next, I open the public hearing on 1008 West Laurel Street. David?
Mayor, proud to report Odessa Dunn has worked diligently on this property. She has rehabbed it successfully, and it has passed the inspection by Aaron, and we can release the condemnation, the resolution to release the proceedings.
Okay, is the owner present? I'll offer the public to express interest in the project. If we have none, then I'll close the public hearing. So Commissioners, is there any further discussion?
I have none.
I have none, Mayor.
Then if there's no further discussion, I will call for a motion.
I move to adopt a resolution rescinding the condemnation of 1008 West Laurel Street and authorize returning any insurance proceeds being held by the city.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Now I'll open the public hearing for 1208 North 6th Street. David?
Mayor, this previous structure was involved in a pretty horrific fire. The owner of the property contracted on his own to have it removed and cleared. He has met all the requirements for the demo, and I would ask that the commission consider approving the rescinding the condemnation and releasing the money back to the owner.
Is there any representative from the owner present that would like to address the commission? The general public? If not, then I'll close the public hearing. Commissioners, any further discussion?
I have none.
I have none, Mayor.
Then with that, I'll call for a motion.
I move to adopt a resolution rescinding the condemnation of 1208 North 6th Street and authorize returning any insurance proceeds being held by the city.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Thank you, David. Okay. The consent agenda. We had no modifications stated or requested for the consent agenda. So with that, then I'll call for a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Items for commission action. Item A, consider a sequential proclamation proclaiming July 25th, 2020 as Independence Sequential Centennial Day and July 4th, 2020 through July 4th, 2021 as the year of the Independence what? Sesquicentennial. I thought we were going to have a meeting in English. Okay.
Mayor Ray is here, and he can present on this item.
Yes. Ray, would you like to come to the podium and address the commission?
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I am with the Independence Historical Museum, and we chose to take the lead on providing the city with the 150th anniversary, which is a little easier than the sesquicentennial. And we have been fortunate to have the support of the Chamber of Main Street and a number of organizations to put together a voluntary committee to move forward with celebrating 150 years of independence. On July 25th in 1870, we have copies at the museum of the minutes that were signed that created the trustees and incorporated the city of Independence at that time. Due to COVID, we had a number of activities planned for July 23rd through the 26th, but obviously planning stopped, and we decided we'd just spread it out for a year. We have 12 months of exciting things planned, incorporating some existing activities, where our plan is to kick off the centennial year with the fireworks display and the Mid-Continent Band concert this 4th of July. Invite you, Mr. Mayor, to read the resolution if it is passed at that time to kick it off. And a commissioned work is being created for the Mid-Continent Band to start off the celebration, and then it'll wind up or it'll accelerate into even more celebration on the 25th of July and continue for the rest of the year. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. We consider it a privilege to be able to be doing this for the City of Independence.
Questions?
Sounds like a great way to start it.
Thank you.
And part of the celebration will be the dedication of the artwork here at Memorial Hall.
The dedication of the assemblage will be here at Memorial Hall, including a reception and a presentation of that assemblage by Jim Hayward. A number of activities are scheduled. We're identifying historic buildings downtown. Many of those, particularly registered buildings, will have registered plaques on them, and an activity is planned around those buildings. The work that's being commissioned by the Mid-Continent Band is based on the historic buildings downtown as well. Again, there are a number of activities, speakers. We have speakers coming in throughout the year. We have Edgar Tidwell will be in February. We have someone coming in talking about railroads in January. Foam on the Range by our own Isaiah McCaffrey. Just a number of activities planned.
Sounds like a busy schedule. And these dates have all been established?
They are established. You'll be seeing calendars come out soon.
Okay, great.
Okay, any further questions? If not, I'll call for a motion.
I move to proclaim July 25th, 2020 as Independence Sesquicentennial Day and July 4th, 2020 through July 4th, 2021 as the year of the Independence Sesquicentennial.
Second.
Okay, have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried.
Thank you, and we invite the community to join with us and participate in that activity.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ray.
And I will read the proclamation. It says, whereas the original settlement known as Haytown was established in 1869, and whereas this settlement was later named Independence and incorporated on July 25th, 1870, and whereas through the diligence of many of our early settlers, businesses and services were created that contributed to the success of the budding community, and whereas the prosperity and development that the city has enjoyed is a direct reflection of the leadership shown by its elected officials and business owners over the past 150 years, and whereas the future success and prosperity of Independence is assured through the determination, strength, and heart of her citizenry and the honest and faithful stewardship of current and future city officials, and whereas the Sesquicentennial Committee has been planning the 150th anniversary since late 2019, and whereas the Mayor and City Commission of Independence recognize the efforts of the Sesquicentennial Committee, which has planned activities for July 4th, 2020 through July 4th, 2021. And now, therefore, I, Leonard Kaflish, current Mayor of the City of Independence, do hereby proclaim July 25th, 2020, the official Independence Sesquicentennial Day. Further, I proclaim July 4th, 2020 through July 4th, 2021, the year of the Independence Sesquicentennial, and encourage all citizens to join with the Independence Sesquicentennial Committee to celebrate the history of Independence, Kansas. Thank you. Thank you, Rafe, and all the volunteers that are working together to make this a special celebration honoring 150 years of independence. So, thank everyone. Item B, consider scope of work to bid clearing out Whiskey Creek Drainage Way from Pine Street south to Cherry Street.
Mayor, I have Mike and Sean here. As you know, the commission has kind of made it a priority to take care of the Whiskey Creek and the flooding issues going on. And this is part of a project that we are working on, and Mike's diligently working on, and to start cleaning up the lower portion of the Whiskey Creek from Cherry up to Pine. And I know you may have some specific questions for Mike and Sean, but this project probably will be divided up into thirds, and I'll let them each speak to you, or if you have specific questions about what we're trying to achieve in this area.
Okay. Commissioner Sissi, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I do have a question. The last flood back in August of, was it 2018? Some of the neighbors had said that, and they didn't identify, but they said that some of the people had been cutting brush and then dumping it in that basin in the Whiskey Creek. So I just wondered if some of the limbs and stuff, if that's still continuing or that's no longer a problem now.
I haven't seen them doing that, but we have checked it from oak to maple so far and cleaned out brush and whatever we can reach with our equipment.
Okay, I think it was just isolated cases here and there. I don't think it was anything
Yeah.
that was throughout the neighborhood, but a couple of the neighbors mentioned that to me, that they did notice that there was a couple of people that were cutting the brush and they're just
Yeah,
taking it in the
that's-
back and dumping it in the creek.
Yeah, that's not good.
Okay.
Commissioner Hayes?
As I read some of the methodology that's prescribed for clearing a waterway, I had some questions arise, and that is that while you can remove a tree by cutting it down so that the stump is level with the ground, I didn't see any, because the root ball is, you can't remove the root ball because that creates a point of erosion, and certain vehicles can't get into the waterway because that also contributes to accelerated erosion. What steps can be taken while we're doing this to prevent the regrowth from those removed trees of, multiple new trees coming up from the same root ball?
In areas where it's critical, we can place some riprap or a rock blanket to help with that. And we're limited on how much we can do there also under this nationwide permit for the Corps of Engineers. That's basically what all the terminology was geared towards, is staying within that nationwide permit. I don't believe there's any procurement of or exclusion of certain herbicides that we could use in the creek. That's something we'll have to investigate. Do you know off the top of your head what's allowable?
I don't, but
But-
I mean, Tordon would be good to use on the stump.
Yeah, there are some herbicides that we could use after cutting the stump to help combat that.
For the effort to be persistent at all, you would think that those types of opportunities to limit the regrowth of those obstructions in the creek would be something that we would want to do, so that it wouldn't basically remove the benefit of the project within a short period of time.
Yeah, we can, that's a good point. We'll do some research on what's allowable for the herbicides in the creek and can add that to the scopes.
Well, thank you.
So you can't remove the root ball and then recompact and reestablish grade?
Typically, only, when a root ball is removed, they've only allowed placement of like flowable fill as an erosion control measure, and it's just the logistics of getting the flowable fill into that area. So
Yeah.
that's
I see Commissioner Hayes' concern that you cut the tree down, but if it's a viable root ball, then all you get is saplings sprouting from the root that it would be.
yeah, it is a
beneficial.
problem, and it is just pretty much straight out of the regulations that below the ordinary watermark, they will not allow us to cut that tree without some special provisions, or remove that tree without some special provisions.
So it would be just something to note for continued maintenance. With the three areas, I noticed that Walnut and Pine is the third section, but is that the first section? You're going to work downstream and go upstream.
The city has, I believe it's 50 or a certain amount in their budget, and we were just wanted to make sure that we had provisions to do at least one section. It's really hard to estimate how much this is going to cost when we contract this out. So when we go for proposals, we'll ask for bids for all three sections and then know what the cost is, and then come back to the commission for some further discussions. So hopefully all three will fit within the budgeted amount, but we're just worried that we won't be able to do all three areas. So.
But as the work is awarded, is it better to start at the south and work north? Is that kind of the plan?
That's exactly what the discussion with Mike was, that I think his priority would be to do exactly that.
So this is kind of the map of what we need to do annually, have budget and proceed, because we're working on our floodplain. Is it the CRS? Yeah, so this kind of ties hand in hand with that program too, doesn't it, David?
Yes, exactly. The CRS program that we're putting in right now, we're doing right in the middle of the active application of it, requires an active maintenance program of our floodways.
So we're kind of getting ahead of the.
Yes, Melissa was very pleased to hear that we were working on different projects like this.
Good. And this will help us establish a budget for the future too. We'll get an idea of actually what contractors are seeing, the cost to do the work, that we can judge on future endeavors on it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you are going to check on allowable herbicides. And any further questions, commissioners?
No, I'm good.
I'm good.
If not, then I'll call for a motion.
I make a motion to move to approve the scope of work and authorize city staff to bid clearing out Whiskey Creek drainage way from Pine South to Cherry Street.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Item C, consider requests for qualifications for engineering services for EDA grant for Whiskey Creek drainage improvements, Sycamore Street and 20th Street.
Mayor, as directed by the commission, we put out a request for qualifications. We got a good response received from 4 firms. We had a subcommittee review the requests that we got, the qualifications, and we came up with Trans Systems as our recommendation. And this is part of that EDA grant that we're working on.
Okay. Questions from the commissioners?
I have none.
I'm good, thank you.
I do have a question concerning the direction. If we do not get the grant, are we going to proceed and look at trying to fund the work out of our budgeted year?
We certainly can, whatever you guys prefer. Or we can see if there's any other opportunities, of course, too.
Yeah, and I guess, Sean, question for you, because, again, addressing the Whiskey Creek problem and then the CRS applications, it seems like we need to keep going with the plan. So with this work, if we do not get the grant, we could still proceed with requests for proposals at this time, and
The process for the grant on the engineering side, for this particular funding, you have to have your engineer selected before you apply for the grant. And the first step is to do a preliminary engineering report. And, we've already done the technical side of that through some of our previous work, so it's really just getting that into a packet. And so you don't have to do any design work to apply for the grant. You can, we need to ask the grant administrator if they want you to have an engineering contract before you apply. And what we've done in those cases is, right, that if you don't receive the grant, it's null and void, or we'll revise the scope somehow. So I guess first, you're not really committing to doing any design yet. And then if you apply for the grant and don't receive it, then it's basically you're back to starting over. You can redefine the project or projects however you want. So, and proceed with that project, same project or a different project. It's really up to the commission's leisure.
think after we get the results of the grant, we probably need to revisit in case we're not successful, so that we can look at the cost to keep the process.
Project going?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's not going to go away.
No.
And if it is causing us issues with our businesses in that area, then we need to address the issue to help them, and then go ahead, since we've got, the longer we get away from our initial survey, conditions can change, and then it negates the initial study. We're back to square one. So I think we should continue on and look, if we don't get the grant, then we still look at how we can fund the engineering and the next project. And since we have the special use sales tax coming up for consideration on the ballot, this would be a project that we could include into that funding source to handle both construction along Whiskey Creek and engineering expenses. So,
And we had drainage and stormwater improvements, as you recall, in our matrix, so that was in there, and this would fit in that, so.
okay, if there's no further questions, then I'll call for a motion.
I move to select Trans Systems to perform engineering services related to an EDA grant for Whiskey Creek drainage improvements in the area of Sycamore and 20th Streets.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Item D, consider updating and modifying the Independence Gun Club lease to allow for the construction of a building subject to FAA approval and updating the maintenance agreement. Okay, Kelly? David?
This is actually David's item.
Yeah.
Mayor, I'm proud to announce I have Mark here, and Mark wants to come on up. The gun club approached me about a building permit, and since this is out on the airport and working with Jeff and Kelly, there's FAA approval required and updating the lease. And so I asked Mark to come and explain to you guys exactly what they're wanting to do, and then with your guys' blessing, they can then move forward to update the lease and get the FAA approval, and we can move forward on this project. So I'll let Mark talk to you.
Thank you. We've had a building donated. It's basically a kit building from Woods Lumber. So we'd like to put that out at our shotgun range. We'll hire someone to erect it. We'll spend that money for a concrete slab. We're going to pay to have water brought in because we really need restrooms and installated. And we'll spend several $1,000s on this project on city property. So it's a free building, but it's not free because we're going to spend some money to make it nice.
Any questions, commissioners?
It says here, modified lease and maintenance agreement, so what are we looking at on that?
Basically, they were supposed to be updated every 5 years based on
Okay.
CPI, and that had not been done. And the 2005 agreement was supposed to have been updated in 2010 and 15 and 20, but it got missed. And so we updated those amounts as well.
Okay. I know I'm having trouble with this tablet keeping up with the document here, so.
Kelly, what provisions can we put in this motion that would help us not miss this at the next 5-year interval?
That's really an internal thing that we need to address. It's done through the finance department. We've had some different finance directors, so we are working on some methods to address that. So that's an internal thing.
Okay.
Can I comment on that? May I comment on that?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Currently, there's only like a $25 exchange of money between the city and the gun club. We lease the property. You pay us to help it. You pay us to help us to clean the range up. Can we just not eliminate the lease or maybe make it a wash? There's only $25 currently that even exchanges hands.
Can I help you on that?
Yes, please.
I think back in 1992, when they started, before my time, the documents I've been shown is that the FAA requires that leases out there be for fair market value. So to offset the amount that the city felt was fair market value from the gun club, they created the maintenance agreement to be ordered to give you some money to help pay the city for the gun club lease. I think that's why it was done, Mark. Paul Sass was here earlier upstairs. If he was here, I could ask him, but I think that's the reason. So I think the FAA will say we can't let it go for free.
Does the maintenance agreement need to be included in the lease agreement, or can they be two separate agreements?
They are two separate agreements. There's a maintenance agreement and a lease agreement. The maintenance agreement's for them taking care of the area.
Can the lease agreement be the same amount as the maintenance agreement?
No, the maintenance agreement, the same amount as the lease,
Exactly.
the other way.
Okay.
From what I hear,
That I think I could say yes. There's some arbitrariness to the numbers you pick.
yeah.
It looked arbitrary to me as I was reading it.
Yeah, it's like, we have to lease the property according to the FAA, but they don't mandate how much.
Well, I'm not trying to argue over $25, believe me. I just thought it might make it easier on everybody.
I know,
Right.
definitely.
We'll keep cleaning the property up whether we're paid or not.
And it could be
Thank you.
they're leasing ground to other entities, and maybe that's why they had it, a little bit higher, just so that they were paying some lease. So it could be that, I don't know. That was actually before I was in the city manager's office when this started in '92. I was in another department at that time.
Well, are these really two separate motions then that have been combined into this one? We could act on the FAA approval first and then take a second action for the modification of the lease and maintenance agreements?
I think you could do it either way, don't you, Jeff?
Yeah, either way is fine.
In that,
So-
well, and the reason I even mentioned that is because if we did want to take a little more time to look at the maintenance agreement, would we have that time to do that in between now and, let's say, the next meeting?
Yes, it's already past due of when it was supposed to be updated, so, what's another 2 weeks?
That's another 20 years in 2 weeks.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
So what we can do is make a motion to extend the request to FAA for the approval of the building. Then if you want to table the lease agreement and the maintenance agreement for a later time, we could do that. Then they could move forward with the building and
Well, the
give time.
building's part of the lease agreement, so you'd have to approve the lease agreement to approve
Okay.
the building. So you could wait on the maintenance agreement, but you probably need to go ahead with the
Yeah,
lease
if it's
agreement.
tied into
Because it
that.
has the information on the building that has to be submitted to the FAA for approval.
So my question really revolves around the maintenance agreement, how it's related in terms of back to what the lease payment is, and if there was any language in the original motion or the original activity around it that would give us some guidance as a commission as to if there is any linkage at all, or whether they could be, the maintenance could be adjusted in terms of, it looks like right now it's about 80% of the value of the lease. We changed it to a higher percentage of the lease payment. What previous language would that obsolete? So,
Right. I will try to find the answers to those questions.
yeah, I would prefer to table the motion on the maintenance agreement until we have a little bit more information, if you don't mind.
What is the building going to be used for?
Well, restrooms, for one, and a meeting room and storage.
Okay. Are there utilities there for the restroom?
No, we have to pay to have that brought in. We've located them, Kansas Aviation maybe, or?
Yeah, we're going to, for the water, Terry told me we'd have to go up towards Kansas Aviation. For the sewer, we're going to go over to the EAA building, right, Terry? Terry? I think that's what he told me. I believe we're going two directions. For the sewer at this, we were going to go to the west towards the EAA building, if I remember in our discussion, and the walk.
To the west over towards the EAA, or we can go north to Freedom Drive or whatever.
Yeah. So we can do it. It's going to take some trenching and
Yeah,
get it all in.
okay. Okay, are there any other questions? And if not, Commissioner Hayes, would you like to make the motion?
I would. I move the city request FAA approval for a new building at the Independence Airport Gun Club and approve the updated and modified lease as prepared by the city attorney.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried.
Thank you.
For the maintenance agreement, how long will it take to get that information and bring it back, Kelly?
It depends on if, how much I can find in Laserfish and talking to Paul.
Do you want to,
And I don't know if Jeff may have a file on it. He might have some information.
What's the exact question again?
They're wanting to know if the maintenance agreement basically can be the same amount as the lease agreement.
Was it originally linked to the value of the lease agreement?
I think they can be the same. There's no rhyme or reason to those numbers. The first the first lease in 1992 was no compensation. Then in 2004, this is from documents Dave provided me from his file. Paul wrote the FAA and the letter says, please note that the city has decided to charge fair market value for the lease. But I think that's when they added the maintenance agreement to offset the lease payment that the gun club was going to have to make to the city. Why they weren't the same amount then, don't have a clue.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I think there's, some, like I said, some arbitrariness to it. I think you could make it the same if you wanted to.
Just so that we keep it going and get a decision on it, can we have a report at the next commission meeting, and if possible, have it on the agenda so we can get it taken care of then?
Would you like us to bring Mr. Sass and put him on the agenda?
You what?
We can bring Mr. Sass and place him on the agenda?
Yeah. Just find out what the difference is and report back, and,
Okay.
you know, if it is something that we can put on the agenda to resolve it, then let's just, since we're behind on the agreement anyway, let's move
Right.
it on.
Okay.
Okay? Great.
Thank you.
Consider setting the date of August 27th, 2020 at 5:30 for the condemnation of the following structures as dangerous and unsafe. Okay, David?
Mayor, first, David and I just wanted to, there's a couple here that we did the last commission meeting, and the register is wanting more detail in the parcel listing. So after visiting with Jeff, we felt it was just best to bring a couple of those back and start over, like 2009 and a half North Penn we had done last month. So just letting the commission know we're starting those over under the direction of the Register of Deeds, correct? Anything you want to add to that, David?
No, it was just a big, long legal description. And the description we had on there before, they said that that included the whole subdivision. So we couldn't very well condemn the whole subdivision.
So,
Yeah.
and they provided us with a better
Yeah.
link and
Yeah.
an easier way for us to get that information going forward, to make this process smooth and make sure we don't accidentally get the wrong property.
That's
Or
good. I'm glad you
multiple
caught it.
properties. So
Yeah.
that's why you're seeing a couple of these again. Also, some of these are these houses that, as the building committee has moving forward, with the first one being 800 East Edison is a vacant house. A letter was sent to the residents. They live out of state and no response. I don't know, Leonard, if you want me just to kind of go through them all right quick, or one by one, or how you want to do this.
Why don't you just go through each of them briefly?
Okay.
Commissioners, would that be okay? And then anyone that you want to go back and have more detail, we would address those. Or
David, if you'll just tell us whether the property is vacant as you go through, I would appreciate it.
Okay, yep. The first one was, this one is a repeat that we're getting the listing correct on. This is vacant and fire damaged and is a total loss. 909 West Chestnut has been a vacant house for several years. It's one of those that we're moving forward with to have removed. 912 West Laurel, this is Hannah's house. Has been vacant for several years, has structural issues, and we are working with Hannah's board, who is moving forward to have it removed. 1020 West Myrtle has been vacant. I know the house next to it for 15 years, so I'm guessing this one approximately the same amount of time. 1214 West Main is vacant. 2009 and a half is fire damaged, and we're just setting that. 704 West Main, I will let the commission know that the owner is meeting with me tomorrow after receiving the letter, and she is going to submit a timeline. And I told her if we could work that out, then at the hearing in August, I would ask to adjourn it pending that timeline and her work being done. 1117 West Main is vacant and is one of those houses, has multiple issues. structurally and infrastructure-wise.
We're making progress on that West Main Street with these couple of houses here. I think the houses on the corner of South 17th,
Yep.
not the corner house, but the one directly west of it, where that front porch is basically pretty much ready to drop to the ground.
Yep.
That looks like
Yes,
property
that is
has
coming
been
here in the
identified.
next couple of months to you. It just didn't make this first list. So we are working those main corridors, trying to clear those vacant houses that are in bad condition.
Okay, good.
Is there any of the owners present that would like to address the commission at this time? If not, then commissioners, are there any further questions, or do you desire more explanation before proceeding to place these for a public hearing?
I have none.
I'm good, Mayor.
Okay, if there's no further questions regarding that, then I'll call for a motion.
I move to set the date of August 27th, 2020 at 5:30 PM for public hearings to consider condemnation of the following structures as dangerous and unsafe: 800 East Edison Street, 816 East Magnolia Street, 909 West Chestnut Street, 912 West Laurel Street, 1020 West Myrtle Street, 1214 West Main Street, 2009 and a half North Penn Avenue, 704 West Main Street, and 1117 West Main Street.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Item F, consider an ordinance amending the National Electric Code as recommended by the Electrical Board. David?
Mayor, the electrical board continues to take steps to work to get us in line with Evergy's policies and the code. They are very cognizant of the residential and the older population and the cost to update service. So that is why they, on the residential, only require a disconnect service exterior of the building on new construction, or if it is over 10 feet from the meter base to the breaker box. That is also why they place in there a temporary service can be hooked up for 45 days to allow for those people that need to raise funds or figure out how they're going to pay for the upgraded service time to make those adjustments. And that's with the agreement of Evergy and all of us working together to assist those residents that get caught in that type of circumstance, which does happen about once or twice a month. It seems like somebody gets put in a situation where they lose service, it's an old service, and it's over the feet from the meter base to the breaker box, which then brings in all these rules that have to be brought into guidance. Along with that, the electrical board feels it is extremely important, and this is at the discretion of the building inspector. When a commercial building is being renovated or work being done in that building, if you go over 50% of redoing the electrical work, they feel similar to like the E code. Once you go over a certain percentage, you need to do the whole building, and that needs to be considered at that time. You start mixing new electrical, some of our old buildings still have the old new knob and tube wiring in it, and old just two-wire systems in it. And with the new modern wiring systems, the mixing of that becomes the electrical board feels in a commercial property where you may have residential or public people in. Once you get over that 51%, they need to just upgrade the whole service. Commercial buildings have a strong disconnect policy on them, both by Evergy and the city, and we're fairly consistent on that. I know you had some questions earlier for me, Mayor, so I'll let you ask those questions.
Okay. With the explanation, I'm not for sure, the way it reads, all new or upgrade commercial electric service shall have a service disconnect on the exterior of the building not to exceed 10 feet from the meter base. When I read it, I see I can put my disconnect 10 feet away from the meter base. But aren't they wanting the disconnect adjacent to the meter?
Yeah.
And if you're over 10 feet to the panel?
It's 10 feet front wired distance from the disconnect to the meter or to the breaker panel.
Okay,
And the disconnect cannot be that far from the meter base. I mean, it's all, but we're judging the wire length is from the disconnect to the breaker box. That's the 10 feet.
okay,
If you're under 10 feet, you do not need a disconnect. If you're over 10 feet, it automatically requires, on a residential,
Yeah.
on a commercial, it doesn't matter. You have to have a disconnect. We want a disconnect on a commercial.
the way, and that's, maybe it's, the wording is a little off
Yeah,
of
and
their
I
intent.
agree.
That
Yeah.
they're saying disconnect to meter base, and it should be disconnect to panel.
Right, yes,
Yeah, okay,
yep.
yeah. That was on 1 and 2. Then
Okay.
3, I had asked David about the way it talks about discretion, but a question was, the electric service said would all be replaced. And well, what if the electric service does meet code and they're just doing the building? And I think you clarified that again, that it's at your discretion. So if it's a new service entrance and an old panel and building, then the electric service entrance on the outside can stay. But if it's an old, outdated, then at your discretion, that would be removed
Yeah.
and
And I get a lot of
replaced.
assistance from Evergy. Evergy pulls up first typically on these, and they're going to tell us right up front whether they're going to even, and I think Lewis could, they're going to tell us up front whether they're going to accept the meter base and disconnect. And the example that you and I were discussing earlier, where a building changes hands and maybe it has more of a service than what's needed, that wouldn't require them to change out that service.
On item 4, the last sentence, any additional grant, if it's talking about the temporary service for commercial or residential of 45 days. Last sentence says, any additional grant of temporary service shall require the approval of the electric board. The electric board is an advisory group to the building inspector or electrical
Right.
inspector. They're not an enforcement, and the decision of whether that should be extended should fall back to the code enforcement or building inspector, though.
Yeah, either me or then come to you, because you guys would probably be the appeal if somebody had an appeal.
Because with our city ordinance describing the duty of the electric board there, and going into the electrical officer, it says that the electrical officer can't be an electrician or being part of an organization that's paid.
Yep.
So, my thought is that last sentence should be struck, and then they clarified that the distance between the service disconnect and the main electric panel does not exceed 10 feet, because like you're saying that.
Yeah, I think we need to take it back. We have a meeting with the electrical board in a couple of weeks and clean up these few items, Mayor, and bring it back to you. I think you had some very good points.
Because that is, it is critical to
Yes.
have the disconnect, remove the
Right.
panels. Some in the older buildings have quite a distance, but I think one of the things, I don't know, maybe it was in our discussion of, in case of a fire.
Yes.
Now, in olden days, the fire department would go up, break the seal, pull the meter, but now they're not allowed to.
Yeah.
So if you've got a fire, you have to have some way to kill the power in the building, and it's a matter of safety.
And I think Lewis could tell you, even if you pull it, sometimes it welds itself and
Yeah.
you still got power. So, I mean,
Yep.
Yeah.
You, and now with, they have so many new people working, and I don't know where everybody lives anymore since I've been gone, but response time, so that way you're not waiting on
Yeah.
a lineman to come out from Caney or somewhere else
Right.
to drive over to do that, so.
Yep.
And then I know why they do it, because you have to have the PPE and
yeah.
the fire-resistant clothing and all that in order to just to work with anything over 50 volts, so.
Yep.
So that pretty well eliminated anybody else pulling a meter.
The commissioners have any questions on the proposals?
Now, we can take a look at it further when they return.
Okay. So
Thank you.
we'll table action.
Okay.
Item G, consider quotes received for repair of the alley crossing and an ADA ramp at the Episcopal Church.
Mayor, I sent out we posted it and we received 4 responses. Graham Construction, which is doing our ADA work, was the low quote at $5,180 for the repair. And we went, at the Episcopal Church, I went back, if you go back about 42 feet from that north ramp that they're going to install, that sidewalk sitting, that's where I basically stopped it. So it's replacing sidewalk there up to that new north ramp, and then the crossing to get across to the new ramp. And I visited with the Episcopal Church, and they're going to move their ADA parking over to that side to utilize the new sidewalk and ramps instead of on the east side where 2 stalls are currently at.
Good. Okay. Commissioners, any questions?
I have none.
I'm good.
If there's no questions, then I'll call for a motion.
I move that the city authorize Jay Graham to make repairs at the Episcopal Church in the amount of $5,180.
Second?
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Item H, consider ordinances relating to requirements for the CRS program.
Mayor, we have started the active application. This process, the actual CRS process, started right at the first week of June. It had been delayed because of COVID, and Melissa still is not allowed to travel, so we're doing everything by phone. So the last couple of weeks, she's been going with me through the different programs and steps. These are 2 ordinances we need that give us points to go towards the reduction in the insurance that flood insurance that people can get. One of them is just cleaning up the language because our code hadn't been updated in a long time, but it also added the requirement that in the floodplain, if you are renting or purchasing property, it has to be disclosed to you in writing that this is in the floodplain. That both informs the purchaser or the renter the need for flood insurance and for their own knowledge so that they don't get flooded out and potentially lose everything. The other one, also, along with repealing a few things, adds in the requirement of an elevation certificate if you're doing significant work in the floodplain. And it also requires any building project, if your house is in the flood zone, requires a building permit. And the purpose of that is so that we can monitor what's happening in the floodplain and administer the FEMA floodplain rules, whether it be building structures, adding structures, ensuring that we're not impeding the flow of water or damming up water, fencing and different things like that. So these are all part of that program and getting it in place. The application is due July 20th. So that's why I'm here today, to get this in front of you guys so that I can submit it with the application.
Will, on the modifications of a house in a floodplain, will they need a building permit for windows or?
They do anything in the floodplain, but if it is something like that, we're not necessarily going to be extremely critical. Mainly what we're watching for is major significant changes into structures, adding additional buildings, outdoor buildings, different things like that. But it does require them to submit a building permit for anything they're doing there. A question, you just bringing that question to me, and I'm just thinking, because David's doing some work on his house, if he's changing out the windows at his house, he will kindly submit that. But since that is not necessarily a requirement that requires an inspection by me or anything, do we want to waive those type of things, the fees, and just maintain the documentation and only charge for what our code is looking for those buildings, additions, and major remodels or additions to the property, charge the building code fees on those? Because the whole idea of the CRS program and to FEMA is documentation of the property and being able to come back in and, you flooded 3 years ago. Have we paid for that storage shed 3 times now? And they're kind of putting that responsibility back on us to kind of track all of this that's going on, maintain our records and the building permits for these properties. And if this property's been flooded out 5 times in the last 10 years, FEMA may come to the city and say, you should consider buying these people out, or you need to do something. It's all about documentation, maintaining our flood zone areas, and taking care of it. So that is one question that I really haven't approached. I mean, it's been in the back of the mind, and David's been kind of talking to me because he's doing some things, and hey, I'm just changing out some windows, $1,000. Do I have to pay a $25 building permit because I have to submit that building permit just for your documentation?
I can see the value of having the permit process. Not only does it keep the city aware of what's going on for future monitoring in the CRS program, but it also helps the property owner then come and find out other requirements. But the fee to do something that doesn't require continued inspection, I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah,
There's no need.
I think you just waive that.
Yeah.
How's it fair that David has to pay $100 for a building permit for some new windows, but me, who doesn't live in the flood zone, can have them put in and I don't have to file a building permit?
Yeah.
So, I mean, just a little by the program.
I think there's always questions, even the elevation requirement,
Yes.
that by having that, then it gives the opportunity to document that it is prepared properly.
Right.
Not that a homeowner or a property owner would assume that they can go one way to get that elevation established, and then later find out that, no, you got to start all over.
Right.
So
Yep.
I see advantages definitely in the process. And then again, like you bring out, we got to be uniform on the fee structure. And if somebody outside the floodplain doesn't have to pay a fee, then you shouldn't have to pay a fee
Right.
there.
It's either that or we just have to do it citywide. And I don't know that we're ready to take that jump yet if you submit a building permit for all of that. Or
No.
I think that would discourage a lot of what people are doing or trying to fix up their homes and take care of their properties.
And then overload enforcement. of
Yes, exactly.
Having those issues. so.
Right.
We could amend the part of the code relating to fees to waive building permit fees for work in the floodplain that would not ordinarily require a building permit and take care of it that way.
That would be good.
I'll work with Kelly to bring that back to you.
Okay.
I hear from time to time that there's so many fees involved if a citizen's trying to do something.
Yep.
And boy, any chance we have the opportunity to eliminate a fee because
Right.
it's not necessary.
Yep.
We should do it and
Right.
and to the benefit of the people that are trying to do those things. So
Yep.
yeah, that's great.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Commissioner Hayes?
Just the opportunity to encourage compliance with the CRS program seems worthy of the waiving of the fees
Yep.
so that we can encourage compliance, because the data itself is what we're after.
Exactly.
The documentation.
Yep, exactly.
Where are you reading that there's an extra fee because of the floodplain? I'm not following at all.
When they file for a building permit, Jeff.
Which section? Because this ordinance is already in our ordinances now. We're not changing
I would
anything.
have to, I could pull it, but in there we have, in the floodplain, they have to file any modifications to the home or anything that they do, they have to do a building permit. I'd have to look through their.
Doesn't say that. If you look at, you're looking at ordinance 4330, the one on the table tonight.
Well, there's two of them.
Yeah, I got that. One of them's just disclosure, though. Is that what you're looking at?
Yes, that should mean that they have to, CRS requires they have to file a building permit.
All this says is if it's for new or substantially improved structures.
Yeah, but it
It
should-
doesn't say all.
Any work that they do on the property.
It doesn't say that.
Well, then we need to,
It doesn't. I mean, this is what they sent us, so,
but
I think.
from what Melissa told me, we need to it's any work that they do on the property related to maintenance, anything that could potentially impede the floodplain. So that's maintenance, additions of sheds, work on the house, anything that they do, we're required to document. And that documentation is for FEMA, and it also protects the homeowner because it shows value that they put into the house. So when FEMA comes and we have a major 07 flood again, that documentation, the homeowner is then able to show, and the city's able to back it up, David put in such and such amount of windows or a new bathroom or whatever he's doing. That's a part of the CRS program, is obtaining that documentation, maintaining it through the building permit process. And similar to what we went through with the one residence we dealt with, Leonard, when they put up a structure, you either has to be elevated or you put in the baffles. It's all for catching those type of situations in the floodplain.
Do you think it would be advantageous to table ordinance 4330 for
Sounds like we
review?
need to go back and I need to look at, I thought I had it worded that any work in the flood zone, and I'd have to look at it again, because I thought I had a paragraph in there where it said it detailed all the different things in that area that you had to do. But I agree, Leonard.
I don't see it in here right now.
Maybe I can bring it back on the 30th and we can get it done, and that will be plenty of time before.
I would feel more comfortable if we could do that.
Yes,
Yeah.
yep. I'm glad Jeff caught that.
Yes.
Thank you.
So what we would be discussing tonight for approval then is just ordinance 4329, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So are there any further questions?
I'm good.
If-
I'm good.
If not, then I'll call for a motion.
I move the city adopt the following ordinance, ordinance 4329, creating a mandatory disclosure requirement for properties within the floodplain.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you.
Motion carried. Item I, consider modifying your September 10th, 2020 commission meeting in order to participate in the MCAC meeting. What is our options? Our September 10th meeting.
Potentially have it earlier in the day, maybe have a morning meeting that time. That way you're still having your 2 meetings per month. And you'd be free that evening to attend the event if you so choose.
We either go Wednesday or earlier in the day as Kelly recommended. What's commissioners?
It appears that I'm free at either of those times, so my preference is whichever one is free with the both of you.
I'm good either way, so pick your flavor.
With the work to get the agenda prepared and distributed and then review, why don't we consider an earlier time in the day? Similarity helps memory, so I don't know if we want to consider 9 o'clock.
I would be available.
Yes, also, I'll be available. 9 o'clock is a good time.
And Kelly, how's that look for you?
That's fine, just a note that Monday is Labor Day, so your packet you may not get till Tuesday, but just FYI on that.
So if we did it,
So if you did it at 9 on Thursday, it'd be fine, but just know you may not get your packet until sometime Tuesday when they get accounts payable
you
done.
mean you're going to take off Labor Day?
Well, I don't do the accounts payable part, but
You know, Lacey didn't.
I'm
even-
happy to do my part, but
Yeah.
I can't do what she does.
She didn't even hesitate. She basically, I'm not going to be there, so you're not going to get it, so,
She has plans.
yeah, okay. So 9 o'clock would work
Yes.
for that, okay. Okay, so,
So that's 9 o'clock,
On
The
September
10th.
10th.
10, okay.
okay, then do I have a motion?
I move to modify the September 10th, 2020 City Commission meeting to 9 a.m. Or to September 10th at 9 a.m.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Item J, consider a resolution authorizing the abatement of unhealthy and unsafe exterior conditions at 225 South 16th Street. David?
Mayor, Code Enforcement Officer Musgrove has been dealing with this situation since December. She's issued, I believe, 3 notices. We've had the owner come to court, which she failed to show at court. The COVID situation then happened, which shut court down. Court is now back open. We have filed for another hearing, which will be in August, just due to the backlog and getting the cases there. I am daily getting calls from the neighbors. Their children cannot go out and play. Rodents and other type of issues are occurring in the neighborhood, skunks and other things like that. And they are wanting something done. Aaron has done everything that we can do at this point. We visited with Jeff and also visited with you, Mayor, with this resolution for the city staff to serve her. It does require a 20-day waiting period, then we can go in and clean it up. Under your suggestion, we have spoke to her, offered for her to sign a release, to release us of those 20 days. She informed Aaron no, she would not sign that. But we're going to go back tomorrow if you guys approve this resolution, and try to serve her again and see if she will sign it. But we just would ask the commission to approve this resolution to allow us to abate this unhealthy condition that is existing in this neighborhood.
Is she bringing all these items into the property?
A person in the household is nightly bringing this stuff in. At times, a small percentage of it may leave, but the pile will grow rapidly again. Pretty much stays in this state most of the time. He has told Aaron, I believe twice this week, that he was going to get it cleaned up, and I was by there today and nothing has occurred. So we feel this is our only recourse to help the neighbors. Waiting till August, we just don't feel is anything that we can do at this point.
So, David, do you have any evidence, does the city have any evidence that this is in fact creating a habitat for vermin?
Just from the neighbors, I can tell you.
Have you trapped any of these animals?
Our animal enforcement officer is not available right now because of illness, so that service is not available. But just on a common, every day we have them.
What I'm worried about is the city employees who are going into this property to clean it up, who might be exposed to this type of...
We will use machinery, I'm pretty sure, right, Mike? You will use machinery to clean it up? Yep.
It can be dangerous.
Yes, very much can.
Bites from these animals can be very dangerous.
Snake bites, who knows what's inside that as they start to take it apart. You are correct.
Is this kind of like a hoarder situation, only a bit on the outside instead of the inside of the house?
It is. I think it's one of those trying to recycle metals and stuff type of deal.
So this looks like perhaps it's a business of some kind that has kind of informally been started there? Is that what you're saying?
It's basically they're not married, but her significant other is using this for income, going out scrapping at night, tearing it what he can apart and selling it during the day, is my understanding of the situation. And it's I mean, I'm new to the commission, but aren't there ordinances that control this type of activity? Yes.
And besides just the dangers and unsafe environment that it causes, don't these types of businesses, especially if they are out in the yard, have some kind of license requirement?
I would refer that to Kelly or Lacey, but
He could not get a license to legally do this. So, I mean, a home occupation license, you can't have evidence of the building. It can only be a certain percentage of the structure. There's quite a few stipulations. So,
Yeah.
we have licenses for this type of business, but it would not be applicable to this area.
this is one of those things, Dean, and we have several of them around town. Some of them, and Jerry probably could speak to this, what these people put them behind 6-foot fences enclosed, but they are out scrapping, doing these things to pay for the activities that they're doing. And Aaron basically follows them, working, trying to alleviate those through our nuisance orders. And this one, she just cannot enforce it. They will not comply.
Okay.
I think 20 days grace is a long time.
Yeah, I said that to Jeff too, but I don't think we have any other. That's all that the law allows, correct, Jeff?
That's the way it's currently written.
I guess we could modify the code, or is that statute?
This is, it's city ordinance, but it may be based on a state statute. I'd have to check.
And that's what, when we discussed it about putting it on for the mayor, that's where he suggested I have Jeff, which Jeff did prepare a release to see if she would at least allow us just to go clean it up. But I don't know that she's going to.
If that's where it's going to end anyway, then if she would sign the release, we could just get it done quicker.
Yeah.
I noticed there were tickets or the vehicles, or one of them had been flagged. Is that included in the 20 days,
I
or is
believe
that
the
a separate
vehicles
issue?
in the street, it's in that picture, so that would fall to the police department.
Okay, so we're talking just about the lawn.
We are talking just what's on the
Yeah.
property.
What about articles that are in the right-of-way? Is that something that falls under the 20-day? Since that's, or is that just a gray area?
Well, I think for purposes of the ordinance, the right-of-way is part of the yard.
Yeah.
So it'd be considered the same as a yard.
Okay.
If it's, when you would say right-of-way, I'm assuming you're saying
From
not in the street, but. I
Right,
mean,
from the property line to the curb.
If it was in the street, there'd be an easy
Yeah.
answer. It would be moved immediately.
Yeah. But it would be beneficial for all parties to sign the agreement.
And I'm hopeful Aaron can
Yeah.
accomplish that tomorrow. The boyfriend wasn't as resistant as the owner was when she approached him.
Okay, any further questions from the commission?
I have none.
I have none.
With that, then I'll call for a motion.
I move to adopt a resolution authorizing abatement of unhealthy and unsafe exterior conditions at 225 South 16th Street.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Next item on the agenda are reports. Item A, 223 West Main Street update.
Mayor, if it's all right with you, as I was asked to give a short explanation of where we are at. Is that, if that's okay with you?
Yes.
I think the commission knows August of 2019 that we stopped work on this project because of questions related to life safety. Pool Fire was hired by the commission to do a review, and he responded back with a list of questions related to life safety. We did receive some response and some updates in December of 2019. The owner was notified of additional requirements to correct those issues that were still found present in the update that was given. I will tell you that we tried to stay regularly in contact with the owner of the information that we need and that we are requesting. And we have sent multiple letters to him related to that. The requirements, we have received additional stuff in the last month, but we continue not to receive the needed information that we can submit to Pool Fire to complete a review of this property at this time. So, and we continue to miss MEP and structural drawings that we are requesting and that Pool is requesting to determine the life safety requirements of the building. So at this time, we continue to wait for those items that we are in need of to complete this, to send it to Pool, and it then goes back to the State Fire Marshal's office for their review and approval at that time. I've clearly outlined that to the owner just a couple of weeks ago again, stating exactly what we need from his professionals to accomplish this and move this project forward. I don't know if you have specific questions, but I just wanted to give a kind of a brief overview of where we're at.
So is there not a timeline that is enforceable on this, or this will just continue indefinitely until when? Till what
A
time?
building permit is issued for a 6-month period, so we are past that.
Right.
But, I mean, I feel as the building department, we want everybody be successful and give them every opportunity to move forward. And if we could receive the requested information that we need to be able to move this forward to pool and to the state fire marshal, we can move forward. We also have a viable business that is operating and functioning in the building and doing well at this time. So, I mean, you are correct, Commissioner. The building permit is expired at this time.
So
But
my point was that, then it seems like everybody's on board as far as moving forward, except maybe the owner is the one that's continued dragging his feet, putting it bluntly.
Yeah, David has showed me his correspondence from the beginning to date, and it's always been clear
Yes.
what he's needing. There's not been any question. Some of it is just code information that needs to be corrected, and it's kind of unique too with construction already advanced, that documentation of how things were assembled that do not comply with the code, what action will be taken to correct those. That's one of the things David has been asking.
I think that's a very good point. It's not my job or my expertise to go in and determine how this was structurally fixed on that back wall is correct. I need the stamped PE drawings that I can refer to and his statement saying that it has been done. The work has been covered over, so there's no way for me to substantiate what's there or what's done. And there's just several structural questions that have come into play with what's happened. And I want to assure the commission, he is well aware of all of our concerns structurally and MEP-wise, well aware of what we're looking at and specifically what we're asking to see so that we can move this process. And it's not only us, the state fire marshal needs to see it and Pool needs to see it to move the process forward.
And we had extended the temporary permit
Yes.
for Indy Brew for 6 months.
Yes.
So we will continue to extend that out another 6 months when
Yes.
that time period
We're
is
con-
up.
Yeah, it's a viable business. It continues.
Yes.
There are issues, but as long as nobody's upstairs, we're continuing to work through this till we get to a resolution someday.
So they're still doing the every hour monitoring?
Yes.
On the hours
Yeah.
that they're in operation?
Yeah.
And keeping a log of that?
As they start getting back up through the
Okay.
COVID, of course, they didn't have any occupancy
Sure.
in, so,
Sure.
yep.
Okay.
David, in your correspondence, are there any reasons given by the owner for the delay? What are the stated reasons for the delay of the documentation?
I can tell you third person, which I'm not going to do, but what I think I would say is Mr. Morrison is trying to answer the questions himself, and that just does not satisfy. I need an architect or the engineer to answer the questions and provide the stuff. The architect has updated the code footprint to some extent, but we still don't have the additional documentation from the structural and the other MEP engineers so that we can put the pieces back together. And whether that's a financial issue or what's creating that holdup, I do not know.
It would be helpful to hear that, what the holdup is from Mr. Morrison, then, wouldn't it?
I know, but I don't want to say for him.
That's why I'm
Yeah.
saying
Yeah.
it would be
Yeah.
helpful to hear it from him.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
And some of it, it came up during a former commission meeting concerning code interpretation. And that's been been clarified quite some time back, which codes would be applicable for this project. And it's just unity to follow that code.
Yeah, that was the code that he agreed upon to follow, and then he wanted to go by another code in the process.
Well, yeah, the codes and requirements were called out in the original construction drawings, and there's just been changes that he's wanted to do once construction started.
Yeah, the original construction drawings are very good and meet the code. It's the as-built that happened afterward that has caused all the difficulties and created life safety issues.
Yeah, I'm sorry, my newness to the commission makes me knowledge incomplete on that particular subject. But it would be worthy, I think, at some point in time for me to perhaps sit down with you and have you take me through the chain of events.
Yes. Yep. Would gladly do that and show you all the correspondence.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions for David?
I'm good.
Okay, thank you, David.
Thank you, David.
Next item, item B, 2020 census update.
I checked this today, and instead of Cherryville beating us, we are tied. So that's the update there. That's all for that item.
Okay. Just everybody needs to remember to get that census data turned in, and it does affect our eligibility for federal funding.
Yes, it does, absolutely
So-
does.
We show
Please.
this when we get an update, but really we haven't, in my recent memory, reviewed the process, which would be that they, as a resident, received a document in the mail with a code to follow to do an online survey
Online or by telephone.
or by telephone. So either calling or using your internet connection would complete the census. And I did the online version myself. It was very quick and easy with simple questions to answer.
Yes, it was. Very easy. And so anything we can do to encourage people to get this done. It does provide a lot of funding to our community, and we just don't want to leave that money on the table.
If someone has in some way inordinately disposed of or lost their code, is there a process for them to get that again?
Well, actually, you can go on the census website, and there is a thing on there if you don't have your code, and you can go ahead and fill it out. And you can go into that, because I was on it the other day and thought, well, I wonder what happens if maybe there was a house that wasn't there before and they didn't know. But yeah, there is a way to do that through their census.gov.
Kelly, doesn't that money amount to somewhere around $38,000 per person? Or am I off base?
Well, I think that was per family
Per family.
over a 10-year period. I think it was like 40, it was in the 40s.
40s, okay.
But,
So that's quite a bit of money that we're
yes.
missing out on if you don't get registered.
well, and our last response rate on the last census was in the 70s, wasn't it, April? And so if you look at 20 to 30% of your population doesn't respond, that's millions and millions of dollars.
Okay. Any further questions? Item C, city board minutes. Commissioners, any questions regarding the board minutes?
I'm good.
I'm good.
Next item is city manager comments.
I have Terry, and he's going to give you an update on the pool and Phase 2 water treatment plant.
Pool's open, so everything's good there. Phase 2 on the water treatment plant, we've been working with PEC. They've done core samples in the basins, core samples down by the sludge ponds, and a lot of information gathering and conversations about treatment processes and how we're going to deal with the backwash water and those situations. We did have a leak. Interestingly, 2 days ago, we had a leak out there. It was coming up by the street. We started chasing it. It's coming out of the North Basin. So this is good timing to get these repaired. So other than that, that's about all that's been going on. We're just getting information together, starting to put things together.
So sorry, go ahead. We talk at the same time. I saw the excavation there to the west of the North Basin where that leak was by
Yes.
the street. So if it's leaking from the basin, have you have fixed the leak with a patch or something like that, or does that excavation need to stay open until the basin is repaired?
They can fill the excavation up. There's no way to really patch without draining the basin down. The problem being it's coming out of the basin and going into an abandoned pipe that was open down by the street, and that's why it was coming up there. And I told the guys to plug that pipe with
There you go.
something to stop that water. Maybe we'll get it come up somewhere else. We'll see.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Terry, at one time you talked about liners on the basin. Is that still something that considered to prolong the longevity of the basin, or we're past that?
No, I think they're still looking at a liner of some kind, or,
Okay.
they haven't come up with a design yet.
Okay. That's
But
still in the consideration.
Depending on these cores, the cores look pretty good. The concrete's pretty solid.
Okay.
It's more the seams that have opened up is where we're seeing the issues.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, and then just an update on some of our projects. Wayfinding signs, RFPs are due by July 9th. AWOL repair quotes are due today. Bids for the KDOT Aviation Grant for the South Apron Run-Up area are due by June 30th. August 6th at 7 a.m. is the new date for the City Health Fair, so you might want to write that down. And a reminder of our June 30th special meeting at 9 a.m. to discuss Phase 2 programming for City Hall. And I'd sent you guys an email right before the meeting, and Trainer is wanting some feedback on the format, and if they're wanting to do that virtually because they're trying to restrict some travel. If they come, I did ask them what the cost would be, and it'd be approximately $500. We did test it out. They can project through our teams, but I know originally that you wanted them to come here, so I just need to get a response back so I can let them know what you want, and then how, basically the format of that meeting and how you would like to see that go.
Yeah, I think they should be here for the meeting. I don't think it'd be as effective going virtual on it.
I would prefer to have them in person.
Yep, I agree.
Okay.
Okay, I will let them know. And is there anything on the format or how you would like them to conduct the meeting that I need to share with them?
I think just general discussion, kind of brainstorm, basically, some different thoughts.
I think from my perspective, because of the nature of this year and a lot of the things we've learned because of the pandemic and the way that work is accomplished and the way that work should be accomplished going forward, a lot of our original assumptions have become perhaps worthy of review. So I think it's probably a kind of a reset conversation.
Okay, I will give them that feedback. Anything else on that item? Okay.
No.
Had good news on our sales tax. This is one of the economic indicators we were waiting on because we were on hold on some of our projects and some of the things that we're doing. And so I printed copies for you, and Lacey is here, and she can review that for you.
So for June, as you can see, our sales tax was up 13.3% from June of 2019. And year-to-date, we are up 3.4% in 2020 over 2019 collections. So, good news.
Yeah, I heard some of the businesses saying that their business had it increased recently. I'm not for sure if that was the stimulus money that allowed people to stimulate the economy with, but it's
These
good
would
to-
be from April sales. But
Yeah. Yeah, April. So good. Hope it continues.
Yes.
And she is also working on getting reimbursement through FEMA and then the Spark funding that's coming to the county. And I've been in touch with the other managers and administrators, and we sent a letter to the county and asked to be a part of that process. And I believe MCAC is helping them administer that, and then Lacey will be heavily involved with that to make sure anything we have spent that's COVID-related, that we make sure that we get it reimbursed.
Good.
So just wanted to let you know that. And then previously, I had froze some things because we just didn't know economically how we were going to be. And at this point, I think we need to get back on some of our projects. So I'm going to open that back up, and some of our hiring and different things that we had waited on. I think it's time we need to move on. We're halfway through the year. We need to get some of our projects done.
Right.
When you talked about reimbursement, you're talking about 100% reimbursement we'll get for COVID costs that we've been out, correct?
I plan on submitting all of them.
Okay.
They'll still, some may be excluded under FEMA, but if they're excluded under one program, the hope is that they are picked up under another.
Okay.
And since Lacey's up there, we did send you guys a financial report, and just if you have any feedback for us on what you would like for that in the future, then that would help us to make sure that we get you the data that you want.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lacey.
Okay,
That's all I have.
Next item is commissioner comments. Commissioner Ususi?
I have none.
I have
Commissioner
none.
Hayes? Been a couple years ago, we talked about the partnering or fee waiver policy that the league was working on. Have you heard anything from,
Fee waiver?
well, it was partnering and
Oh, you mean for the sponsoring?
sponsoring, partnering?
She has not ever responded to me. I can email Amanda again.
Okay.
And I
Well,
know
if we
they've been
would.
kind of overwhelmed, and they're a little
know.
displaced with, I think some of them are working from home and things, but they do a weekly Zoom update that they've been doing, but I will ask her if she's had a chance to work on it.
It's been
It's been a while.
3 years?
Yeah, at least 2.
Yeah. Okay,
We did talk to her, I think, at the last league meeting about it.
yeah. Maybe a
Last fall.
reminder. And, you know, if they don't have time, then maybe we could look at something else.
Or Jeff maybe can draft us something.
You are a legislative body, you can come up with your own definition
Oh,
and
okay,
call it good, so
okay.
you can do that.
Now that would be interesting, yeah.
You can redefine anything you want.
Okay,
Well, with the limitation.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. We'll check with her.
Okay.
You know, we're seeing another wave of COVID-19 come through. I think it's critical as we come into the 4th of July that we all take precautions. There's really difficult for the city to enforce any method that's going to guarantee to keep people safe. I think what I realize is my safety is my responsibility, and we have to protect ourselves. We have to realize that where the danger is, it's in large groups, family, everyone, your health conditions. So it's relatively safe, but as we approach 4th of July, a lot of people are moving about. We're going to be in groups that will have visitors and friends from out of town. Long-term exposure in large groups puts us at risk, and that's the case that we need to remember. We have to protect ourselves. Remember the hand sanitizer, wash often, contact with your eyes, your mouth, to be careful, wear a mask, that the masks will protect from spreading from you to someone else, and hopefully will stop them from spreading too. But we all are responsible for protecting ourselves. No one else is going to do it. I found out that daughter number 3 and family have planned a trip to New Mexico for a week with some friends. And I think, of all times with the resurgence of COVID-19, and, they're not in the at-risk group. And I think it's oftentimes we forget that at-risk group is just us senior citizens, but there are others. But, as we approach 4th of July, I encourage everyone to take care and protect yourself, that we're going to be in situations that could be putting us at exposure. But I know the city is doing some messaging, trying to get the word out. And David, Kelly, and the staff are doing an excellent job of looking at all possible avenues to get the message out. So, don't be in fear, but be careful and take what precautions that you feel are necessary.
Mayor,
So,
may I add one thing?
sure.
And that is that it is particularly important also that we as citizens pay attention to our own health, and if we are feeling ill, and if we are feeling symptomatic, that we stay home, that we stay away from others. Recently, some of the cases that have arisen in Montgomery County are because people who were only mildly symptomatic decided that they would go to work. And this was not a wise decision because they took it with them to the workplace. So please be particularly careful and attentive to your own health condition, and if you are feeling ill, even slightly ill, less than you would normally consider, it's still worthy of consideration to stay home until you know what your real health condition is.
Thank you. No further commissioner comments. I'll open for public concerns. Do we have anyone present tonight that has from the public that has a concern they'd like to share with the commission? If not, the next item on the agenda is an executive session. So I move that we recess for an executive session for review and discussion city manager applications pursuant to the non-elected personnel exception, KSA 75-4319B1. And the open meeting will resume at 7:40 in the Civic Center. So do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Okay, we're back in session. There's no action to be taken from executive session. The next item on our agenda is adjournment. And I make a motion, we adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.